The convoy drifted through the endless dark. Small trading vessels from a peaceful race called the Thalran moved quietly between the stars. They had done this route many times, carrying food, minerals, and medicines across their neighboring worlds. This time the space around them felt strange. The readings on their screens began to flicker. The captain of the lead ship stared at the glowing console and noticed the gravity lines shifting in strange ways. He ordered the crew to check the engines and navigation systems. The crew tried to adjust their course, but something unseen pulled them off track. The stars outside the windows bent and twisted as if the universe itself was folding around them. Within moments, alarms echoed through the ship. The smaller cargo vessels tried to form up, but the gravitational pull grew stronger, dragging them all toward the edge of a dying star. The Thalran ships were not built for combat or storms. They were light, thin, and made for trade, not survival. The captain shouted commands to reverse thrust and stabilize, but the engines screamed in protest. Then everything went silent. The stars outside stopped moving. They had fallen into a dead pocket of space. At first they thought they had survived, but soon realized something was wrong. Their navigation beacons stopped responding. The main communications relay showed no signal. The background hum of galactic noise disappeared. It was as if they had fallen into a part of the universe where no one could hear them. The Thalran had always trusted technology, but now every system showed errors. They were lost in deep space. The first few days passed in uneasy calm. The crew tried to send distress signals, but nothing came back. The younger workers whispered to each other, asking if anyone had ever been rescued from such isolation. The captain tried to keep order, telling them that someone somewhere would notice their absence. He ordered the engineers to ration fuel and power. Lights dimmed to conserve energy. The corridors grew colder. Food supplies were counted again and again. As the days turned into weeks, panic began to grow. The ships floated close together for comfort. They could see each other through the small viewing ports, blinking slowly in the dark like lonely stars. The captain made daily announcements encouraging everyone to keep faith. He told them help would come, that someone would hear their call. But deep down he knew how unlikely it was. The galaxy was vast and silent, and no one knew this region well. One night, a mechanic named Errol sat near the communication console, trying one last time to boost the distress signal. He had adjusted frequencies again and again for hours, but got nothing but static. He leaned back and stared at the screen when suddenly the static changed. It was faint, almost lost under the noise, but it was there. A voice. It lasted only a second before vanishing. He froze, staring wide-eyed, then shouted for the captain. The captain and others rushed to the console. They rewound the signal and played it again. This time the sound was clearer. It was not Thalran. The words were sharp and quick, a rhythm they had never heard before. They ran it through the translator. The system struggled, but finally gave a rough output. The message said, "Hold on, we hear you." The bridge went silent. No one spoke for a long moment. Then the captain whispered the question on everyone's mind. Who are they? The translator confirmed the source language. Human. The word spread through the ships like fire. Humans were a distant species rarely seen in this part of the galaxy. Stories about them had always sounded wild. Some said they were fearless explorers who entered any void and survived impossible odds. Others said they were reckless and violent. The Thalran had never met one in person. To them, humans were only distant figures from trade news and tales. The captain hesitated, unsure whether to trust the signal. Still, he told Errol to respond. They used their most basic universal frequency and transmitted a simple message. "We are lost. We need help. Please confirm identity." The minutes stretched. Everyone waited, breath-held eyes fixed on the blinking console light. Then the reply came through stronger than before. "This is Terran Navy ship Resolute. We have your signal. We are coming." The crew looked at one another in disbelief. Their readings showed that the source was far away but closing fast. The humans had received their call and were burning through hyperspace to reach them. The Thalran captain sent coordinates and status details. He warned that their ships were weak, that their systems were breaking down, and that radiation from the nearby star was rising. The human response came quickly. "Understood. Hold your position. We will get you out." The Thalran expected negotiation or delay or even a demand for payment, but none came. The humans did not ask who they were or what reward there might be. They only said, "Stay alive." That was all. The Thalran could hear the steady calm of the human voice through static as they checked coordinates again and again. The humans guided them to adjust their position slightly to minimize radiation exposure. It felt strange to be comforted by voices of a species they had once feared. Hours passed as the Thalren waited. Some slept, though none rested deeply. Others sat at the window staring at the endless dark, hoping to see the rescue ship. They whispered among themselves, wondering what kind of beings would risk traveling so far for strangers. The captain stayed on the bridge the whole time, watching the scanners. Then at last the sensors picked up a massive energy signature. Something huge was coming out of hyperspace. A flash lit the void, and then the human warship appeared. It was unlike anything the Thalren had ever seen. Its hull was enormous and scarred by old battles. Lines of blue light ran along its sides. It looked alive, a silent guardian moving through the darkness. The Resolute slowed and held position near the convoy. The humans opened communication again. A calm voice introduced themselves as commander of the United Human Ship Resolute. They assured the Thalren that rescue operations would begin immediately. The captain of the Thalren convoy thanked them in a shaking voice. The human only replied, "No need for thanks, just hold steady." Then human engineers began scanning their systems remotely. They sent navigation corrections and shared energy fields to stabilize power. Within minutes, the Thalren saw readings on their screens begin to improve. The humans transmitted data packages filled with repair codes and safety maps. The convoy slowly regained balance. For the first time in weeks, hope returned. The Thalren looked out their windows and saw the human warship standing guard like a fortress between them and the dying star. The humans began positioning themselves to tow the weakest vessels out first. The Thalren captain watched in silence, amazed at their precision. Every command from the human ship came clearly and with calm authority. It felt as if these humans had done this 1,000 times. Still, the Thalren could not understand why. They had offered nothing. The humans gained nothing from this mission, and yet they risked their own fuel and safety to save lives they did not know. The Thalren engineers whispered among themselves, wondering if the humans had some hidden reason. But the captain said quietly, "Maybe they do this because they remember what it feels like to be alone in the dark." As the first Thalren vessel was prepared for extraction, the convoy watched the humans coordinate in perfect order. Every movement seemed designed to protect. The human warship extended energy beams to shield them from radiation. Power fluctuations were corrected instantly. The Thalren realized that the humans were not just helping, they were leading them out of death. The captain sent a private message to the human commander saying that the Thalren would repay them somehow. The human only replied, "You would have done the same." The simplicity of those words left the Thalren speechless. They had no answer. As the rescue continued, the Thalren recorded every transmission. They wanted to remember this moment forever. Each message from the humans carried strength, calm, and empathy. They could almost feel the presence of the human crew working tirelessly behind those metal walls. Before the last phase of the rescue, the captain gathered his crew. He told them that no matter what happened, they would tell the galaxy about the humans who answered their call without hesitation. They all agreed. They wanted everyone to know what kind of beings humans truly were. The convoy floated quietly beside the mighty warship, waiting for the final pull away from the dying star. Through the thin window of his ship, the Thalren captain watched the human vessel glowing faintly against the black sky. He felt something he had never felt before in all his years among the stars. Trust. He whispered softly to himself, words meant for no one else. Maybe the stories were wrong. Maybe humans are not dangerous. Maybe they are the hope the galaxy forgot it had. And in that still moment, surrounded by endless silence, the Thalren waited as the human warship prepared to guide them home. The Thalren ships moved slowly behind the great human warship as it adjusted their course. The dark space around them felt less empty now that another presence was there. The humans spoke calmly through the comm lines, giving instructions in short, clear sentences. Every voice sounded steady, as if no fear existed among them. The Thalren followed every command, trusting the humans completely. Their sensors showed that the star nearby was still unstable, throwing small bursts of radiation into the void. But the human ship kept itself between the danger and the convoy. The Thalren crew watched the screens as the human vessel used its massive engines to create a protective field around them. They could not understand how such a heavy ship could move with so much grace. Inside the Thalren control room, the captain stood in silence, watching the light from the Resolute spread across the dark. It was a strange kind of beauty. For the first time since they were lost, the crew could breathe normally again. They began to talk quietly among themselves. Some wondered what kind of people humans really were. Some remembered stories about human bravery and madness. Others simply said that they would not be alive without them. The humans sent more data streams to the Thalran ships, helping them repair damaged systems. The engineers worked quickly to translate the human technology. They were surprised by how simple the designs looked compared to their own. The humans seemed to build things to last forever. Heavy, durable, and made to work even when broken. That made sense to the Thalran captain. A species that spent so much time exploring dangerous places would learn to survive no matter what. A new voice came from the human ship. It was the chief engineer calling to report that they had linked power lines to stabilize the Thalran reactors. The captain thanked them, but the human only said, "No need to thank us, it's the right thing to do." That answer stayed in the captain's mind. In the galaxy, most races asked for something in return. Help always came with a price. But these humans refused payment again and again. They worked as if helping strangers was the only rule they knew. Hours passed. The Thalran rested and waited while the humans ran constant scans of the area. The star's surface activity increased again, and strange waves of energy began to ripple through space. The human commander ordered the convoy to stay close and reduce power to avoid interference. The Thalran obeyed instantly. They watched as the human warship turned slightly, positioning itself between the star and the convoy again. Even the smallest fluctuation the humans noticed before anyone else. When the next energy surge hit the region, the human ship absorbed most of the blast. The shockwave shook the Thalran vessels, but none were damaged. Through the window, the Thalran could see the warship's shields flare bright blue before fading back to normal. The humans did not even slow down. They adjusted position as if nothing had happened. The Thalran were amazed. They knew their own ships would have been torn apart by such force. The communication console buzzed again, and the human commander's voice filled the bridge. He asked for an update on the Thalran life support and food levels. When the captain admitted that supplies were running low, the human promised to send emergency rations once the area was safe. The Thalran were silent for a moment, then one of the crew whispered that humans must value life more than anything else. The captain agreed quietly. That night cycle, the Thalran ships floated together, forming a small cluster behind the human warship. The view from the observation deck showed the huge vessel shining faintly in the distance. Its lights blinked rhythmically like a heartbeat. Some Thalran crew members stayed awake staring at it in wonder. They said it made them feel protected. Others began to record logs to send back to their world if they survived. They wanted their people to know that humans had come for them. The captain sat in his chair watching the readings. His mind wandered back to the first time he had heard about humans. He remembered diplomats describing them as unpredictable creatures who could be kind one day and dangerous the next. They were said to fight among themselves yet unite instantly against any threat. The captain smiled slightly. He now understood that humans might argue, but when someone needed help, they became one. That strength was something no other race seemed to have. Suddenly, the alarm sounded. The sensor officer shouted that another gravitational shift was forming ahead. The dying star was pulling matter from its surface, creating a small storm of plasma and debris. The path the humans had planned was closing fast. The captain of the Thalran convoy sent an urgent message to the human ship, warning them. The human commander replied, already aware of the danger, and told them to stay calm. His voice did not shake even once. Within moments, the warship began moving again, engines roaring. It placed itself directly between the storm and the convoy. The humans launched drones to measure the field strength. The Thalran watched in awe as the drones disappeared into the glowing waves. The data returned quickly, and the human commander gave new coordinates for escape. The Thalran ships followed the exact route provided. They could see bright streams of energy swirling near the star, but the humans kept them at a safe distance. For several hours, the storm grew worse. The Thalran could feel their ships shaking as space itself seemed to bend. The humans increased their shield power again, taking the pressure of the radiation. Inside the Thalran bridge, the lights flickered, but they stayed online. The human voice came through every few minutes, giving small updates, always calm, always clear. It was as if they were guiding them through a dark sea with steady hands. At one point, a smaller Thalran ship reported engine failure. The human commander responded instantly, sending a towing drone to stabilize it. The Thalran could not believe how fast the humans acted. Within minutes, the failing ship was secured and pulled back into formation. The humans spoke reassuringly to the frightened crew until they were safe again. Every Thalran who heard that exchange felt respect growing deeper inside them. Finally, after long hours of strain, the sensors showed that the worst part of the storm had passed. The convoy moved slowly into clearer space. The human ship reduced speed and sent a final check signal to make sure all vessels were stable. The Thalran captain leaned back in his chair, exhausted but grateful. He opened communication and thanked the humans again, saying that without them none of the Thalran ships would have survived. The human commander replied again with the same simple line. Anyone would do the same. The Thalran crew smiled quietly, but they all knew that was not true. Not everyone would risk so much for strangers. Only the humans had done that. They had come from far away only because they had heard a faint distress call. They had burned fuel and risked their ship without hesitation. Later, when the Thalran engineers reviewed the logs, they noticed how much power the human ship had spent reaching them. It was far more than any vessel should use for a rescue mission. The humans had pushed their engines to dangerous levels to arrive faster. That fact spread quickly among the Thalran. It made them realize that the humans had treated their lives as precious as their own. The Thalran began to feel something stronger than gratitude. It was admiration mixed with a strange sense of duty. They promised among themselves that if they ever found others in danger, they would do the same. The captain quietly recorded this in his personal log, saying that humanity had shown them what courage meant. As the hours turned into calm, silence again, the Thalran could hear only the soft hum of their repaired engines. The human warship continued to escort them through the void. The captain looked at the sensor display showing the large vessel ahead. It moved steadily, a constant light in the dark. He wondered what kind of people served on board. Were they proud of what they had done, or was it simply normal for them? Maybe humans did not think of it as heroism, but only as their duty. Before the rest cycle ended, the human commander contacted the convoy again. He said they were still not fully out of danger because the dying star's magnetic field could shift again, but they were working on a safer route. The Thalran captain thanked him and said his people would follow any instruction. The human replied, "Good, stay close and we will take you home." When the communication ended, the Thalran bridge crew sat in silence for a moment. One of them said softly, "I believe them." The captain nodded. "So do I." Outside the window, the vast blackness stretched endlessly, but it no longer felt hopeless. The Thalran ships glided smoothly behind the warship, watching its blue lights blink through the darkness. Somewhere deep inside each Thalran there grew a quiet feeling that maybe the universe was not as cold as they once thought. Somewhere out there were beings who answered calls for help without hesitation, and that made the dark a little less frightening. The human warship continued to lead them forward, never slowing, never faltering. Its engines burned bright, in the distance marking a path through the endless sea of stars, and the Thalran followed with hearts full of awe and gratitude, trusting that these humans would see them safely home. The human warship stood like a giant shield in the darkness, its surface glowing faintly as it absorbed the faint light of the dying star. The Thalran ship stayed close behind, still amazed at how such a massive vessel could move with quiet grace. The human voices came through the comm channel clear and calm, guiding every small adjustment, every shift in position. To the Thalran, it felt like following a teacher who had crossed this kind of storm many times before. The humans did not sound proud or commanding, they sounded focused and steady. Inside the Thalran control room, the crew watched their scanners. The radiation readings began to rise again, and the background energy of the star pulsed stronger. The captain asked for a report, and his officer replied that the field was getting unstable. The humans were already aware. Their commander's voice came over the line telling the Thalran to prepare for a heavy burst and to keep shields aligned with the human ship's energy field. The captain gave the order and the crew obeyed without question. Then the storm came. It started as a faint vibration, then grew into a blinding surge of light that stretched across space. The humans increased power to their shields without hesitation. The blue energy around the Resolute flared bright enough to cast shadows on the Thalran bridges. The wave hit them a few seconds later, shaking every ship in the convoy. The Thalran vessels rocked under the force, but none broke apart. Through the windows they could see the Resolute glowing brighter, taking most of the impact. The communications line crackled with static. The human voice came again, saying, "Hold your line, you are under our cover." The Thalran could barely see anything through the white glare, but they followed every word. The storm lasted for long minutes that felt like hours. Every pulse of radiation drained their shields further. Inside the Thalran ships, the temperature dropped and lights flickered. Crew members held on to their stations waiting for the next shockwave. Finally, the light began to fade. The radiation sensors started to calm and the shaking slowed. When vision cleared again, the first thing they saw was the human ship still in front of them, battered but steady. Its hull glowed faint red from the heat, but it had not moved from its position. It had taken the worst of the storm to protect them. The Thalran bridge filled with silence. No one spoke for a long time. Then the captain stood and gave a quiet order to open a channel to the human ship. When the link opened, the human commander's face appeared on the small screen. He looked tired but composed. The captain of the Thalran convoy bowed his head slightly and said, "You saved us again." The human shook his head and said, "We just did what we had to do." The captain tried to offer something in return, anything, but the human refused. He said, "Your safety is enough." Then he turned to give new orders to his crew without waiting for praise. The Thalran watched as the humans worked to repair their own damage while still helping others. They sent repair drones to fix cracked hulls on the smaller Thalran ships. The humans even shared spare fuel cells from their own reserves. The Thalran were moved by how freely they gave their resources. Among most species, such acts were rare. Yet these humans gave as if it was the most natural thing in the world. While the crews repaired systems, the Thalran engineers continued to study human technology. They were fascinated by its toughness. Human machines were built simply but survived extreme conditions. Every system had backup after backup. The engineers realized that humans did not design for comfort, they designed for endurance. It explained why the Resolute had survived so many storms and battles before this one. Later, as the ships drifted in calmer space, the Thalran captain spoke privately with his first officer. He said he could not understand how humans could be both so powerful and so humble. The officer replied, "Maybe that is why they are strong." The captain nodded slowly, watching the glowing shape of the human ship ahead. He thought about all the stories he had heard about humans being reckless and dangerous. Now he saw something else. They were brave not because they were fearless, but because they cared even when they did not have to. A soft alert rang through the Thalran ship, breaking the quiet moment. The sensors picked up something strange near the edge of their formation. A fragment of the dying star had broken away, drifting toward them faster than expected. It was large enough to destroy one of the smaller ships. The Thalran sent a warning to the human vessel. The response came instantly. The Resolute moved between the fragment and the convoy, its thrusters burning bright. The human gunners locked onto the object and fired a series of short energy bursts. The fragment exploded harmlessly into dust. The Thalran crew cheered softly in relief. Once again, the humans had acted before anyone else. Their reflexes seemed almost impossible. The captain thanked them again, but the human commander replied with the same quiet tone, all part of the job. The Thalran began to understand that for humans, saving lives was not a favor or a burden. It was a duty written deep inside them. As time passed, the convoy began to stabilize. Life support improved and power levels rose. The humans monitored everything, making sure no one was left behind. The Thalran noticed that the humans never seemed to rest. Even when the shifts changed, new voices took over the comm lines without pause. There was always someone awake watching over them. The Thalran crew members started to speak of the humans with deep respect, calling them guardians of the void. One evening cycle, while most of the Thalran rested, the captain stayed awake watching the stars. He saw the faint blue lights of the human ship and felt safe for the first time since the journey began. He remembered how hopeless he had felt when they were first trapped. Now he knew that help could come from the least expected place. He whispered quietly that perhaps the universe had not abandoned them after all. The next morning cycle, the human commander called all ships for a meeting. His voice carried urgency. The readings from the star had changed again. A massive flare was forming, and it would soon release a storm larger than the last. They had limited time to escape. The humans shared a new route that would take them out of the danger zone, but it would require full cooperation. The Thalran captain listened carefully and confirmed that every ship would follow. The humans began the sequence. The Resolute took the lead, and the Thalran convoy followed in close formation. The star behind them started to brighten, and lines of light ran across its surface. The human sensors tracked every pulse, calculating the safe window to jump away. The human commander's voice was calm as ever, giving countdowns and direction changes. The Thalran moved perfectly in sync. When the flare erupted, it lit the void like a second sun. The humans initiated their final shield expansion. covering all the smaller ships. The shockwave slammed into them, but the combined shields held. The Thalren could feel the vibration through their hulls, but the pressure slowly decreased. Then they were through. The sensors cleared, showing open space free of radiation. The Thalren ships burst into cheers. They had survived the worst. The captain looked out at the human ship still glowing faintly from the strain. He opened a private channel and said, "Humanity will not be forgotten." The human commander smiled faintly and replied, "Just promise you will do the same for someone else one day." The words stayed in the captain's heart. He promised quietly that his people would remember. As the convoy drifted into safe space, the humans continued to escort them, even though their own systems were damaged. The Thalren could see small sparks along the Resolute's hull, but the humans did not slow down. They seemed determined to make sure the aliens were completely safe before tending to themselves. When the first Thalren ship confirmed stable readings, the captain sent a message saying that the humans could finally rest. The reply came with a hint of warmth in the commander's voice. "We will rest when you are all home." Those words carried through every ship in the convoy. The Thalren crews felt something they had never felt before toward another species. Pride and gratitude mixed together into one feeling they could not name. They continued traveling under the watchful eye of the Resolute. The humans never left their side even when the danger was gone. To the Thalren, it felt like having a guardian made of metal and courage leading them through the sea of stars. Every time they looked at that ship, they remembered the moment a human voice had broken the silence and said, "Hold on, we hear you." That memory would stay with them forever. The Thalren convoy floated in the quiet after the storm, feeling both relief and exhaustion. The human warship still stood in front of them, a giant silver wall against the dying light of the star. Its engines glowed faintly, showing that it was still alive and moving even after taking the full force of the radiation waves. The Thalren ships followed in silence, trusting every move of their protectors. The human voices came through the comm lines again, steady and clear, telling them to prepare for system checks and fuel transfers. Even in the middle of danger, the humans sounded calm. It gave everyone a strange sense of peace. The Thalren captain sat on his bridge staring at the faint light of the human ship. He thought about how far these strangers had come just to save them. They had not asked for help, they had not offered anything in return. Yet the humans had appeared in their darkest hour. It made him wonder what kind of hearts could drive such courage. His first officer said quietly, "Maybe humans are just different." The captain nodded. "Different in a way the galaxy needs." The crew worked to stabilize their systems under the guidance of the humans. They exchanged small bursts of data through the link. Every instruction from the humans was clear and simple. Adjust thrusters 3 degrees down. Check pressure valves. Rebalance power. The Thalren engineers followed every word, and slowly their readings began to normalize. They could see the glow of the human drones, moving between the ships, fixing what was broken and leaving trails of soft blue light behind. For a short while it seemed like peace had returned, but the sensors soon began to flicker again. A faint warning signal appeared on every screen. The radiation near the star was shifting once more. The human commander's voice came through the line saying, "There is another storm building. We will hold position between you and the core. Stay behind our shield." The Thalren obeyed instantly. The next few minutes were tense. The glow of the star began to grow brighter. The air inside the ships felt heavy as the gravity waves started to build again. The Thalren could see the human ship turn slightly, aligning its shield generators toward the center of the storm. The commander ordered all human crew to battle stations. The Thalren could hear their voices faintly through the open line, quick, organized, and full of focus. It was the sound of discipline and courage. Then the storm hit. It came as a roar of light and energy tearing through the void. The human ship took the first impact, its shields blazing white. The Thalren ships shook violently, but they were still within the protection field. The radiation level climbed to dangerous numbers. The Thalren watched as the human ship's outer hull began to glow red-hot, but still it held its position. Inside the Thalren ship's fear spread. Some thought the humans would not survive if they stayed any longer. The Thalren captain sent a desperate message begging the humans to fall back. The reply came quickly. "Negative. We stay until you are safe." The captain closed his eyes as the storm raged on. The humans did not move. Minutes turned into what felt like hours. The screens flashed warnings again and again. Systems in the human ship began to flicker. Small explosions appeared along its side, but it never turned away. The Thalran could see the light of emergency drones flying out to make repairs in real time. It was impossible, and yet the humans kept working. They fought not with weapons, but with willpower. When the storm finally began to fade, the space around them was filled with drifting light. The dying star calmed down, leaving a faint red glow behind. The Thalran looked up to see the Resolute still standing guard. Its armor was blackened and damaged. Parts of its hull were cracked and venting faint trails of vapor. Yet it remained in formation, unmoving and unbroken. The Thalran bridge was silent. Every crew member stared at the image of the human ship on the screen. It had endured everything to save them. The captain opened the communication line and his voice trembled as he spoke. "You risked everything for us. Why?" The human commander paused for a moment, then said simply, "Because you asked for help. That is all that mattered." Those words echoed through the Thalran ships. No one spoke for a long time. Some of the younger crew wiped tears from their eyes. They had never heard something so honest. In their world, everything was measured in trade and exchange, but the humans had given without asking for anything. The captain whispered to himself, "Maybe this is what true strength looks like." The humans began emergency repairs on their own vessel. The Thalran offered help, but the human commander refused, saying, "You have done enough. Just stay alive." Even with parts of their ship damaged, the humans continued to scan for threats, making sure the convoy was safe. They sent coordinates for the next jump point and promised to lead them out of the danger zone soon. While waiting, the Thalran engineers watched the data logs from the storm. They saw how much power the humans had used and how close their systems were to failure. It was a miracle the Resolute still functioned. The Thalran realized that the humans had sacrificed almost all their reserve energy to keep the shields active around the convoy. Every watt of power had been used to save alien lives. When the humans finally reported their ship stable enough for movement, the convoy prepared to leave the area. The Thalran captain gave a short message to the human commander, thanking him again. The human replied in a tired voice, saying, "Just stay behind us, we will take you home." The Thalran captain could hear exhaustion, but also pride in that voice. The convoy moved again, leaving behind the dying star that had nearly destroyed them. The space ahead was clearer now, but filled with strange glowing clouds left by the storms. The humans guided them through, slowly checking every field for danger. The Thalran followed silently, watching the majestic ship ahead, leading them with quiet strength. After many hours, the Thalran crew began to relax. They shared food with each other and spoke softly about what had happened. Some said they had seen bravery before, but never like this. Others said humans must be made of something stronger than fear. The captain listened and said humans are made of hope. That is their power. Later that cycle, the human ship called again. Their commander explained that their long-range communication was still blocked by interference, and they could not contact their fleet yet, but they were sending beacons toward the nearest relay. The Thalran offered to help transmit signals, but the humans declined, saying, "Save your energy. We have enough." Through the windows, the Thalran could see the scars on the Resolute. Entire sections were dark. It looked wounded, yet still beautiful. The sight filled them with admiration. They began to record everything that had happened to share with their people one day. The captain made sure every transmission and every voice from the humans was saved. He wanted the galaxy to know that when everyone else was silent, the humans answered. As time passed, the convoy drifted further from the danger zone. The radiation levels dropped to safe numbers. The Thalran began to believe they would survive, yet the human ship still stayed close, keeping watch. The captain asked the commander if they would return home after this. The human laughed lightly and said, "Home is wherever someone needs us." The words carried warmth that made the Thalran crew smile. When the human ship finally signaled that the path ahead was clear, the Thalran captain gathered his crew. He told them that no matter how long they lived, they would remember this journey. He said the humans had shown them that kindness could shine even in the darkest void. The crew agreed in silence, their eyes fixed on the glowing ship ahead. The Thalran convoy followed the human warship through the last stretch of the dead zone. The stars ahead grew brighter and steadier. The humans guided them until the instruments showed normal readings again. The captain of the Thalran ship sent one final message before their systems switched to normal space. He said, "If we ever meet again, we will return this favor 100 times over." The human commander replied softly, "I know you will." The stars opened before them as they left the dying system behind. The Thalran ships glided smoothly under the light of safety, while the human warship slowed behind them, its engines dim from overuse. The Thalran captain looked one last time at the ship that had carried them through the fire and whispered, "May the stars guide you always." The humans did not reply, but the faint signal light on the Resolute blinked once in acknowledgement before they continued, on into the vast silent dark leading the way, home. The human warship moved slowly now, its engines, dim after the storm but still alive. The Thalran ships followed behind like shadows, afraid to go too far or too near. They could see how damaged the human vessel was, large cracks on its hull, dark patches, where armor had burned away, yet it still held a straight course through the empty dark. The Thalran captain watched from his bridge and felt a deep respect for these beings who refused to fall. His first officer said quietly, "It looks like it should not even fly anymore, but it does because humans do not stop." The journey through the outer debris field was slow. There were still fragments of broken satellites and old wrecks from ancient battles scattered in space. The humans guided the convoy carefully, using their sensors to map a safe route. The human commander's voice came through, often calm and short, giving directions like, "Turn 2 degrees starboard" or "slow engines by 10%. The Thalran crew followed without question. They trusted that voice more than their own instincts now. Hours passed like this until the Thalran scanners picked up faint movement ahead. At first they thought it was more debris, but the signal pattern was too regular. The human sensors confirmed it quickly. Unknown vessels approaching from the outer rim. The Thalran feared it might be raiders. The human commander told everyone to stay close and maintain radio silence. The human ship turned slightly, taking the forward position again. Its weapon ports open, though its energy levels were still low. The Thalran watched in silence, their hearts pounding. Soon the unknown ships came into view. They were small and fast, dark in color, with narrow wings that looked like blades. The humans recognized them immediately. Marauder scavengers who hunted weak ships along forgotten routes. The Thalran knew their reputation too, and panic spread among their crews. The human commander spoke again, calm as ever, saying, "We will handle them." "Stay behind us." The Thalran could hear the determination in his tone and stayed still. The marauders approached in a loose formation, scanning both groups. They must have seen the damaged human ship and thought it would be an easy target. They sent a message demanding surrender and cargo transfer. The humans did not respond. Instead, the warship powered up what weapons it still had. A deep hum filled the Thalran sensors. Then, without warning, bright flashes of light erupted from the human vessel. The first volley from the humans struck hard. One marauder ship exploded instantly, another lost its wing and spun into space. The rest turned sharply, spreading out. They began to fire back, but their shots were weak and scattered. The humans moved with precision, hitting one target after another. Even damaged, they fought like a force of nature. The Thalran could see the controlled movements, the way each turret tracked its mark perfectly. It was like watching an artist paint with fire. But the humans were still weakened from the storm, and the marauders kept coming. The Thalran could see the human shields flickering under the repeated hits. The captain clenched his hands, wishing there was something he could do. Then an idea came to him. He ordered his ships to power up their auxiliary cannons. They were not strong, but together they could make a difference. The Thalran opened fire in support. The combined force of the convoy turned the tide. The marauders were not expecting resistance from the escorts. The humans used that moment to strike again. Their main gun fired one last time, sending a beam of energy through the remaining ships. The explosion lit the space around them like a sunrise. When the light faded, the marauders were gone, only debris left drifting slowly away. Silence followed. The Thalran bridge erupted in cheers. They had survived again. The human commander came on the line, breathing heavily. "Status check, everyone all right?" The Thalran captain answered, "Yes, thanks to you." The commander replied, "You fought well today. We could not have done it alone." It was a small moment, but it meant everything to the Thalran, who had always seen humans as distant legends. The humans began repair work again, using drones and spare parts. The Thalran offered what supplies they had, and this time the humans accepted. Together they worked to patch the ship's outer hull. The Thalran engineers were amazed at the design of the human system, so simple yet so strong. They learned quickly from the humans how to adapt their tools to fit. It became more than survival, it became cooperation. Days passed as they moved through quiet space. The Thalran crew began to talk with the humans more often. They shared stories about their worlds, their food, their skies. The humans listened with curiosity, asking questions about Thalran customs. In return, they told stories about their own oceans, mountains, and cities. The Thalren were surprised at how human laughter sounded even across digital lines, warm and full of life. The bond between them grew stronger. The Thalren began to call the human commander by a title in their own language, meaning Shield of the Stars. The humans laughed softly at that but accepted it. They did not see themselves as heroes, only as people doing what was right. That humility made the Thalren admire them even more. But deep space was never fully safe. One night cycle, the sensors picked up something massive moving in the distance. The humans analyzed the readings and frowned. It was not a ship but a fragment of an ancient station drifting through the dark with unstable reactors inside. If it exploded, it would send another wave of radiation across their path. The humans quickly plotted a new route, but time was short. They would have to pass close to the fragment before it detonated. The commander explained the situation to the Thalren. He told them to prepare for emergency maneuvers and to trust his timing. The convoy followed orders as always. The humans accelerated, pushing their engines harder than they should. The Thalren ships followed in their wake. The damaged warship groaned under the stress, but still it moved fast and steady. As they neared the unstable station, the scanners went wild. The human sensors detected rising energy levels inside. The commander's voice came over the channel sharp now. All ships brace for shockwave. The explosion came seconds later, a flash of white light that filled every screen. The human ship turned hard, releasing counter-energy pulses to absorb part of the blast. The convoy shook violently but stayed intact. The human shields took most of the hit. When it was over, the stars returned slowly. The Thalren systems flickered back online. They looked up to see the human ship again, scarred and blackened, but still ahead of them, still leading. The Thalren captain whispered, "They never stop." The humans sent a short message after confirming all ships were safe. They said, "Just another day at work." It made the Thalren laugh even in their exhaustion. Later, when things were calm, the Thalren captain asked the human commander why they kept risking everything for strangers. The answer came after a long pause. "Because once we were the ones lost in the dark and someone came for us. Now it is our turn." The Thalren understood then that this was not only duty for the humans, it was memory and promise. They continued their journey for several more cycles, moving closer to the edge of the dead zone. Each day the stars grew clearer and brighter. The Thalren felt hope returning. They repaired their ships completely now with human help. Their people began to smile again, to sing old songs quietly as they worked. The sound of life returned to the ships that had once floated in despair. The human warship, though battered, remained their guide. The Thalren often looked at it glowing faintly in the distance and felt safe. They began to record more transmissions of human voices and shared them among the crew like treasures. To them, the humans had become more than rescuers. They had become symbols of courage and unity. When they finally reached the edge of the dark zone, the human sensors confirmed open space ahead. The commander announced that they were out of danger at last. Cheers filled every ship. The Thalren captain sent a long message of gratitude, promising that their worlds would remember this day forever. The humans replied with a simple message saying, "Then it was worth it." As the Thalren convoy powered up their long-range engines, the human warship slowed down again, its systems near exhaustion. The Thalren offered to escort them now, but the commander refused gently, saying, "You have a home to return to, go while you can." The Thalren hesitated but obeyed. They knew the humans would not accept rest until every trace of danger was gone. Before leaving, the captain sent one last private message to the human commander saying, "You will always have a place among our stars." The reply came back a moment later, quiet but strong, "And you in ours." Then the connection ended. The Thalren ships turned toward the open sky, leaving trails of light behind as they jumped into hyperspace. The human warship remained behind, drifting slowly among the fading debris, its lights dim but steady. Inside, its crew began silent repairs, once again tired but proud. They had done what they came to do. They had saved lives and brought hope to a place that had forgotten it. In the endless dark, their ship shone, faintly like a promise to anyone still lost in the void, that someone would always answer the call. The human warship drifted, near the edge of the dead zone, while the Thalren convoy disappeared into the distance, leaving trails of light behind them as they entered safer space. Inside the human ship, everything was quiet, except for the soft hum of failing engines and the distant sound of repair drones at work. The crew was tired, their faces pale from days without proper rest, but there was pride in their eyes. They had done something that few could ever claim. They had saved an entire convoy from destruction. The commander sat in his chair watching the fading glow of the Thalran ships. For a long time he said nothing. Then in a low voice he told his crew, "Good work. Everyone, now let us bring our ship home." The crew began to move again, slowly, carefully checking systems and redirecting power. The hull was damaged beyond easy repair. Several sections were sealed off and power conduits had burned out. But the heart of the ship still beat strong. The engineers rerouted energy to the engines while the pilots plotted a return course to human space. It would take days, maybe weeks with their current speed. Still, they did not complain. For humans, this was just another test. As the ship crawled forward, the commander reviewed the mission logs. Every moment of the journey was recorded, from the first rescue signal to the final battle. He read the messages from the Thalran captain again, especially the last one promising that their people would never forget. The commander smiled faintly. In the vast loneliness of the galaxy, it was rare to find such genuine words. He saved the message in the ship's archive with a note saying, "This is why we are out here." The crew gathered in the main hall later that cycle. They shared the last of their fresh food rationed over the mission. Someone played soft music through the speakers, a simple human melody that filled the hall with warmth. They talked quietly about their homes, their families, their friends waiting far away. For a while they let themselves forget the noise of engines and the weight of duty. Even in the cold void, laughter echoed softly. Outside, the stars looked sharper than before. The dying light of the storm system was gone, leaving the sky clear and full of color. The navigator adjusted the course toward a nearby pulsar that could serve as a guide beacon. The commander gave the order to increase thrust by a small margin. The ship responded with a low rumble, steady and sure. Even damaged, it obeyed, as if proud of its crew. Days passed without major trouble. The humans repaired what they could and kept watch for any sign of danger. They knew the dark zones were unpredictable and even a small system failure could end them. But they worked together as always, trusting each other completely. The younger officers learned much from the veterans who taught them how to fix broken systems with patience and calm. Every person on that ship became stronger because they depended on one another. One night the sensors picked up a faint signal from the direction they had come. It was weak but clear. The Thalran were sending a message. The commander ordered it played through the speakers. The voice of the Thalran captain filled the hall, saying, "We reached our home thanks to you. Our people are safe. We will tell everyone what humans have done for us. May your stars burn forever." The message, repeated once, then ended. The crew sat in silence for a long moment. Then applause broke out. It was not loud, just sincere and full of feeling. For them, it was the greatest reward. The commander stood and looked around at his crew. He said, "We were not out here for medals or glory. We came because someone needed help, and that is what we do. That is what it means to be human." His words were simple, but they reached every heart in that room. Some of the crew wiped their eyes, others nodded quietly. In that moment, they all felt the same pride. Later, they resumed their journey home. The ship glided past glowing clouds of dust and old wrecks that drifted like ghosts. Every scar on their hull told a story of courage. The humans had faced storms and enemies and still carried on. The universe was silent around them, but inside that silence there was peace. A few days later, the long-range sensors finally picked up the signal of another human fleet. The communications officer called out in excitement. The commander ordered immediate contact. Within minutes, a voice came through the static. It was a human patrol ship answering their call, saying, "This is the 7th Fleet, identify yourself." The commander replied, "This is the Resolute, reporting successful rescue of Thalran. Convoy, we are heavily damaged and request escort." There was a long pause on the other end, then the voice returned, filled with respect, saying, "We received your mission data. We are honored to guide you home." Soon lights appeared in the distant ships of the 7th Fleet coming to meet them. The crew of the Resolute watched through the windows as the bright shapes grew larger. For the first time in weeks, they felt safe. When the two groups finally met, the fleet commander hailed them personally. He said, "We heard about what you did. The galaxy is already talking about it." The Thalran Council sent a message of gratitude to the United Human Command and asked to form a new alliance. The crew of the Resolute exchanged surprised looks. They had not done it for politics, but the result made them proud. Humanity had earned trust through action. The Resolute was escorted back to the nearest repair station orbiting a blue world near the rim. As they entered dock, the station crews cheered, watching the battered ship arrive. Engineers swarmed over its hull to begin repairs. The commander and his officers stood quietly on the bridge watching the activity outside. For the first time in a long while, they allowed themselves to rest. After the mission report was completed, the commander was called to speak with the High Council through a holographic link. They thanked him for his leadership and bravery, but he only said the credit belongs to the crew. He told them about the Thalrin, about how they had fought beside humans and how they had learned from each other. He ended by saying the galaxy is full of life, but sometimes all it needs is one hand reaching out. The council members nodded in agreement and promised full support for new cooperative missions. Back on the station, the crew enjoyed real food and sleep for the first time in many cycles. They sat together watching news reports showing images of the Thalrin people celebrating under their twin suns. They saw children holding banners with the human emblem painted on them. Some of the crew laughed, some just stared in quiet amazement. It felt unreal that their small act had reached across the stars. The commander visited the ship's observation deck one evening. The stars stretched endlessly beyond the glass. He thought about the many worlds still hidden in that darkness, the lives that might one day call for help. He knew the Resolute would answer again because that was its purpose. Behind him, one of the young officers approached and asked, "Sir, do you think they will remember us?" The commander smiled and said, "Maybe not our names, but they will remember that humans came." Months later, the Resolute was fully repaired and ready for a new mission. The crew gathered once more aboard the bridge, their uniforms clean and their hearts steady. The Fleet Command sent new orders for exploration into an uncharted sector. As the engines powered up, the commander looked around at his people and said once more, "Into the dark." The crew responded together, "Aye, sir." The ship moved out slowly, leaving the safety of the station behind. Ahead lay the endless unknown, full of dangers and wonders. The humans did not fear it. They had already seen how light could be found even in the darkest places. As the Resolute vanished into the horizon of stars, its signal beacon flashed a steady rhythm, the same one that had guided the Thalrin through their worst night, far away on the Thalrin. Homeworld people looked up at their skies and remembered. They taught their children the story of the humans who came when no one else did, who fought the storm and the marauders and never turned away. They called it the Day of the Burning Star, and every year they lit bright lanterns in the night sky to honor the humans who had saved them. And so the legend spread across worlds and years, carried in whispers and songs. Wherever ships drifted lost or afraid, someone would say, "Do not lose hope," because once there were humans who heard a call and they came. And out there, somewhere among the endless stars, the Resolute kept moving, silent, strong, and unbroken. A promise made of steel and heart to all who would ever be lost in deep space.